Welcome back. Tonight I have 3 true stories that will crawl under your skin and linger long after the video ends. These are real-life accounts from viewers like you. Stories of home invasions, ghostly encounters, and the terror of not being alone in the dark. They remind us how thin the line is between the ordinary and the nightmarish. Listen closely. These stories might just make you question every creak and shadow in your own home. Let's begin. This story comes from Mark. A tale of a night that irrevocably altered his perception of safety and security. It's a chilling account, a stark reminder that tranquility can be shattered in the blink of an eye. It was a night whose sense of safety was shattered, quite literally, one cold winter evening. The sound of breaking glass, the chilling realization that his home, his sanctuary, had been violated. Mark lived in a quiet suburb, the kind of place where people left doors unlocked, where neighbors knew each other, and a sense of community prevailed. It was a place where children played freely in the streets, and the biggest concern was usually the occasional stray dog. Crime was something that happened elsewhere, in the big city, not in their peaceful haven. One night, alone while his wife was away on a business trip, he went to bed after working late, burning the midnight oil to meet a crucial deadline. The house was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of crickets chirping. He was exhausted, looking forward to a good night's sleep, unaware of the terror that awaited him. In the dead of night, a faint thud from downstairs woke him, pulling him from the depths of sleep into a state of groggy confusion. It was a subtle sound, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to rouse him from his slumber. He tried to dismiss it as just the house settling, the old timbers groaning under the weight of the night, but then he heard the unmistakable creak of a floorboard in the hallway below. It was a distinct sound, a clear indication that someone, or something, was moving around downstairs. Mark froze. Someone was in his house. The blood ran cold in his veins, and a wave of fear washed over him. His heart began to race, and his senses heightened as he tried to process the gravity of the situation. He reached for his phone on the nightstand, his hand trembling slightly, barely daring to breathe, afraid that any sound would alert the intruder to his presence. He fumbled with the device, his fingers clumsy with fear, desperately trying to unlock it and dial for help. Then, slow, deliberate footsteps ascended the stairs, each step echoing in the silent house, amplifying the terror in Mark's heart. The intruder was getting closer, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. The intruder was right outside his bedroom door, the barrier between him and an unknown threat. He could feel their presence, a dark and menacing energy that filled the hallway. Mark grabbed a heavy lamp from the nightstand, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum, adrenaline coursing through his veins. It was the only weapon he could find, a desperate attempt to defend himself against the unknown, and watched in horror as the doorknob began to turn, slowly, deliberately, each click of the mechanism a hammer blow to his sanity. The door was about to open, and he would be face to face with his nightmare. Just as the door creaked open, revealing a sliver of darkness, distant sirens wailed in the distance. He'd managed to dial 911 in his panic. His desperate plea for help finally answered. The sound of the approaching sirens was a beacon of hope in the darkness, a sign that he might just survive this ordeal. The intruder, startled by the approaching sirens, bolted, slamming the back door as they fled into the night. The sound of the door slamming echoed through the house, a final punctuation mark on the terrifying encounter. As police lights flashed outside, painting the walls with an eerie red and blue glow. The flashing lights were a stark reminder of the danger he had just faced, and the fragility of his sense of security. Officers arrived and found muddy footprints leading up to Mark's bedroom, a clear indication of the intruder's path, but the intruder was long gone, vanished into the darkness. The footprints were a tangible reminder of the violation, a permanent stain on his sense of peace. Mark's home was never the same. The sense of security, the feeling of safety and peace was lost forever, replaced by a constant sense of unease and vulnerability. The walls that had once protected him now felt like a prison, a constant reminder of the night his world had been turned upside down. He installed alarms, reinforced doors, and invested in a state-of-the-art security system, but the fear lingered, a constant shadow lurking in the corners of his mind. No matter how much he tried to protect himself, he could never truly escape the memory of that night. He still wakes at night in a cold sweat, startled by the slightest sound, haunted by the memory of that slow-turning doorknob, the symbol of his shattered peace. The image is forever etched in his mind, a constant reminder of the night his life changed forever. Mark shares his story as a warning. Never take your safety for granted. Never assume that you are immune to the dangers of the world. Be vigilant, be aware, and take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and your loved ones. The silence of the night can be broken in an instant, and your world will never be the same. It's a lesson learned the hard way, a reminder that even in the most peaceful of settings, danger can lurk just around the corner. Our next story comes from Clara, a seasoned long-haul trucker. Clara spent years crisscrossing the country, witnessing the vast landscapes and experiencing the solitude of the open road. She's a woman of grit and experience, not easily fazed by the unusual. Or so she thought. This is a tale of a chilling encounter on a desolate Nevada highway, a stretch of road known for its emptiness and eerie silence. It's a place where the darkness seems to swallow everything whole, and the only company is the hum of your engine and the distant stars. It was around 2 a.m., the witching hour as some call it. Clara was driving through the heart of the desert, mile after mile of nothingness blurring past her headlights. The fatigue was starting to set in, but she pushed on, determined to make her delivery on time. Suddenly, in the beam of her headlights, she spotted a figure on the side of the road. An elderly man, thumb outstretched, hitchhiking. It was an odd sight, to say the least. Who would be out here in the middle of nowhere at this ungodly hour? Company policy strictly forbade picking up hitchhikers. It was a safety risk, plain and simple. And Clara knew it. But something about the man, the vulnerability in his posture, tugged at her heart. Against her better judgment, and against all company rules, she slowed down and pulled over. The man, who introduced himself as Arthur, was polite and grateful beyond measure. He had a kind face, etched with the lines of a life well lived, and a gentle smile that put Clara at ease. He explained that his car had broken down a few miles back, leaving him stranded. He was trying to get to a nearby diner, a beacon of light in the vast darkness, to call for help. He desperately needed a ride. As she drove, they talked easily. Arthur shared stories about his life, his travels, and most fondly, about his daughter. He spoke of her with such love and pride that Clara couldn't help but feel a connection to this kind stranger. The miles seemed to melt away as they chatted, the silence of the desert replaced by the comforting sound of human connection. Soon, the glowing neon sign of the diner appeared in the distance. Arthur pointed it out, his voice filled with relief. He thanked Clara profusely for her kindness, saying he didn't know what he would have done without her. Clara glanced at him, acknowledging his gratitude with a nod. Then, she quickly looked back at the road, focusing on the approaching diner. But when she looked again, just a split second later, the passenger seat was completely empty. The door was locked, the window was sealed tight. There was no way Arthur could have simply gotten out. He had vanished into thin air. Shaken to her core, Clara pulled her truck into the diner's parking lot, her mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. She walked inside and, trying to appear calm, asked the waitress if she had seen Arthur come in. The waitress's face drained of all color. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and a look of pure terror washed over her features. In a hushed whisper, barely audible, she said, "Arthur died 10 years ago, in a car accident right on that bend in the road." She pointed to a faded, dusty photograph hanging on the wall, a picture of an elderly man with a kind face and a gentle smile. It was Arthur. Clara soon learned that she wasn't the first trucker to have encountered Arthur. Over the years, others had picked him up along that stretch of highway, each with a similar story to tell. Each time, Arthur would vanish without a trace before reaching the diner, leaving the drivers bewildered and shaken. Clara finished her route in stunned silence. The image of Arthur's smiling face and the waitress's terrified expression burned into her memory. She vowed never to drive that particular stretch of highway at night again. To this day, Clara can't explain what happened that night, but she knows, deep down, that she spoke with a ghost, a restless spirit still trying to find his way home, one ride at a time. Our final story comes from Liam, Chloe, Ben, and Maya. They were the kind of friends who sought adventure, always looking for a new experience to share. They'd explored hidden caves, hiked treacherous trails, and even tried their hand at amateur ghost hunting. But nothing could have prepared them for what they encountered during their weekend getaway. They decided to rent a remote cabin nestled deep within the woods for a weekend escape, hoping to disconnect from their busy lives and reconnect with each other. The advertisement promised tranquility and seclusion, a chance to unwind amidst nature's beauty. Little did they know, their peaceful retreat would soon turn into a terrifying ordeal. The cabin was charming in a rustic way, but filled with antique dolls with unsettling eyes and faded photos of stern-looking people, relics of a bygone era. Each doll seemed to possess its own unique personality, their porcelain faces frozen in expressions that ranged from melancholic to menacing. The photographs hinted at a history shrouded in mystery, a past that seemed to linger within the cabin's walls. It was all a bit creepy, admittedly, but they laughed it off, attributing the unsettling atmosphere to their overactive imaginations and the cabin's age. They joked about the dolls being possessed and the photos depicting the cabin's former residents, trying to lighten the mood with humor and camaraderie. They were determined to enjoy their weekend, regardless of the eerie vibes. That night, as they settled in for sleep, a rhythmic tapping echoed from upstairs, a persistent and unnerving sound that broke the silence of the forest. It was a slow, deliberate tapping, as if someone or something was methodically making its way across the floorboards above. The sound sent shivers down their spines, a stark reminder that they were not alone in the remote cabin. Ben, ever the skeptic, bravely volunteered to check, armed with a flashlight and a healthy dose of skepticism. He crept up the creaky wooden stairs, his heart pounding in his chest, but found nothing. The upstairs bedrooms were empty, the tapping had ceased, and an unsettling silence had descended upon the cabin once more. Later, Chloe screamed, a blood-curdling shriek that jolted everyone awake. She'd seen a child's reflection behind her in the bathroom mirror, a fleeting glimpse of a pale face and dark eyes. But when she turned around, the hallway was empty. The air grew heavy with fear, and the friends began to realize that something truly sinister was at play. Unease settled in, thick and suffocating. They locked their doors, barricading themselves in their rooms, and tried to sleep, but the night was filled with restless tossing and turning, haunted by the images of the child's reflection and the unsettling tapping from upstairs. Every creak of the cabin, every rustle of leaves outside the window, sent shivers down their spines. Liam awoke to a child's laughter in his room, a high-pitched, chilling sound that seemed to echo from the very walls. He was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak, as the laughter grew louder and closer, filling the room with an oppressive sense of dread. He squeezed his eyes shut, praying for the night to end. The next day, they decided to hike into the woods, hoping to shake off the dread and find some semblance of normalcy. But even amidst the beauty of nature, the woods felt oppressive, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. The trees seemed to loom over them, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms, and the silence was broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional snap of a twig. Returning at dusk, exhausted and unnerved, they found the front door wide open, though they were certain they'd locked it before leaving. A cold gust of wind swept through the cabin, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something else, something indefinable and unsettling. Inside, a horrifying tableau awaited them. All the dolls were arranged in a perfect circle on the living room floor, their vacant eyes staring directly at the door, as if they were expecting someone or something to enter. The sight was enough to send a wave of nausea through them, a clear sign that they were no longer welcome in the cabin. That was enough. They grabbed their things in a frenzy, not bothering to pack neatly or say goodbye to the unsettling dolls. They fled the cabin, their hearts pounding in their chests, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere and the feeling of being watched. As they sped away down the long, winding driveway, Maya glanced back at the cabin and saw a pale child's face in the upstairs window, its eyes fixed on them with an unnerving intensity. She gasped, pointing towards the window, but by the time the others looked, the face had vanished. They never spoke of it again, burying the terrifying memories deep within their minds, hoping to forget the horrors they had witnessed in the remote cabin. The experience had shaken them to their core, leaving them with a lingering sense of unease and a newfound respect for the unknown. Months later, Liam, unable to shake the feeling that something was left unresolved, discovered the cabin's tragic history through old newspaper clippings and local legends. He learned that a young girl had died there many years ago, a victim of a tragic accident, and her grieving parents claimed that her spirit never left the cabin, forever bound to the place of her untimely demise. The friends finally realized they'd been unwelcome guests in a home still occupied by a lonely, playful ghost, a spirit yearning for connection and perhaps a little bit of mischief. They had stumbled upon a place where the veil between worlds was thin, a place where the past refused to stay buried. 3 stories, 3 reminders that horror can find us anywhere. From a home invasion to a ghostly hitchhiker to a haunted cabin, these tales prove the unknown is never far away. So tonight, check your locks, glance in the mirror, and don't ignore that strange noise in the dark. The world is full of shadows, and sometimes they cross into our lives. Thank you to Mark, Clara, and Liam's group for sharing their stories. If you have a true, creepy story, share it in the comments or email us. Subscribe for more, and until next time, try to get some sleep. Good night.